Greetings everyone. Today I'm going to try to show you what I did with the Porsche after the recent changes. In patch 1.9.6 they changed the dampening of the car. I don't know exactly what they did, but the dampers felt stiffer, especially at the front. So I had a lot of lift off throttle and lift off brake oversteer, and I just did not like the car how it handled. This was my setting up the car, and also I think I was learning the track. mm, and my okay lap was the 27th. So let's take a look. This was with patch 1.9.5 and with the setup I released on my channel. Just let me reset my VR. So this is our flying lap. It's still a race setup with 32 liters of fuel left, 40 started, much safer, much less aggressive camber at the rear to save the tires, but as you can see it rotates nicely. When I lift off the brake it just keep turning in the same manner, same trajectory. In Kyalami you have to leave some high speed lift off oversteer, as you can see here, but it decently controlled. But you have to leave it there, because if you mute it down too much the car will just understeer in the slow corners. So you have to either sacrifice the slow corners or sacrifice some of the high speed entries, and basically that one is the only real issue. All the other entries are high braking, then gradual release or trail braking. So that one is the only high speed little brake corner. I think I was a bit slow there. Never mind. Not the best lap of my life. Okay, and that was our lap. It was a 41.6. Let me just launch my test server, because in the last patch Kunas gave the car 15 kilograms of minus 15 kilograms ballast for Kyalami, because it was a bit slow here. So I made a server with plus 15 BoP. So basically we are at the same BoP as in the patch 1.9.5. And first we are going to use the 1.9.5 setup with the 1.9.7 changes. So let's take a look at the setup. At least I explain some things what I release just usually. So we have some high rear toe. This is to control the high speed braking. Also it gives some better exit oversteer, which is very useful. There's a corner, this one, this is the dip. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, turn 8 maybe. This is a full throttle, because there's a straight after it. Full throttle, high G-force, kind of what I say, a lot of turning happens here, and you have to accelerate and everything. So you need some high speed on throttle oversteer to handle this turn well. Because if you don't handle it, others will just catch you here, and in the hairpin they just overtake you. So you need a good handling there. That's one key point for this track. Then another key point is this high-speed corner, which you need a lot of rotation, but it's always a tricky one with Porsche, because you have to control the high-speed, slight trail braking only, oversteer. So high toe for stability and for good exit there. 3.2 camber to save the rear tires. 4 at the maximum, because those are expendable. Usually you have problems with the rear wear, not at the front. So unless the fronts are very different in the OMI temps, I do not touch them and just keep them at maximum. Sorry, I was just looking at the desktop meanwhile. Front toe is high to have good turn-in. Electronics as usual, 5.3. We will use 4 liters. And 15 steering ratio. I switched to 15 recently because I drove the other cars a lot and I got used to the slower steering. The steering ratio does not affect the performance of the car, but it affects how you handle it. So that's why I always cover it with my setups, because it's completely personal preference. You should use what you feel comfortable with, how much turning you want to, and how responsive you want it to for small inputs. 49.6 brake bias is usually in the 49 to 50 range I used. Full anti-roll bars, especially for that fast left-right hander, to have the good left to right change. A lot of preload. The diff preload only mostly affects the coasting in GT3s. In GT3s, the acceleration and braking differential locks are regulated. They are the same for all of the cars as far as I know, or at least they are equalized somehow. But you can preload it. So if you have low preload, you have a bit less acceleration and a bit less braking locking, and a lot less while coasting. So it lets the car rotate much not under, but when you are coasting, so neither braking, neither throttling. And if you lock it, you get a much low diff there, which does not let it rotate, but it smoothens the transition. So a low preload is good for agility, but it can be a bit twitchy when transitioning from braking to coast or braking to throttle or others. But most setups I use very low. But on the Porsche I use middle-ish does not let it snap under lift of throttle. Rear is full soft except the anti-roll bars. And driving on the bump stops, I like to drive on the bump stops with most cars, because with high wheel rate, when you brake, the real springs push the car forward and it dives. With bump stops, it has sort of the same effect for squatting, but it does not push the car forward when braking. You can do same-ish with dampers, but I just like how the car drives on the bump stops at the rear. Front bump stops at 7/1000. That is not much. I mean, you barely reach 17 or even higher. It just mostly like a failsafe. For very hard braking and cornering, you get a slightly less on the oversteering at high cornering and braking, but there's not much on Kyalami, and leaving it high, it just lets the front end grip more in high speed corners, and two-wheel rate at the front to keep it a bit higher up and not let it dive that much. It just also making it a bit less grippy at the front with a bit higher spring rate. You make the rear ones grip easier, so they push the car back. The front they push the car back under accelerating, so it squats and it does not let it move and slide that much, which kills the tires. Because for the Porsche, you have to keep your rear tires in check. Dampers are okay. These are not extreme. A bit high bump stop at the front. Probably I set it up due to that fast right-hander to not snap it. Still high at the rear. I control the rear bump with a bit less fast bump, so I have closer to the Gaussian distribution, which is for having the most traction of the car via by suspension. That's why I don't like the meta setups, because they sacrifice that, which is important for tire life and extracting most of the traction from the tires. And tires are the most important on the setup, because that's the only thing that contacts the car and that surface. Normal rebound at the rear, a bit less rebound at the front to let it squat a bit. Aero is normal 25-ish rake, max wing, 3-2 brake ducts. I use real brake ducts higher because, contrary to belief, the brake ducts between the range, which is operational, they are not there to regulate the brake temps. But they do regulate the brake temps, but the brake temps they have a very high range of operation, 250 to 750. And between that, they sort of behave completely the same. But if you keep the brakes colder but still in the range, you keep your tires colder. If you keep the brakes hotter but still in the range, you keep your tires warmer. And usually there's a limit what the track can handle. Most tracks it's 2, some have 1, and the higher limit is usually 4, 5. And the trick is the brake temperatures are not really affected by the ambient temperature, because if you calculate it, 600 or 700 Celsius, and the difference between like 10 is 690, while if you have like a high temp 30 degrees, it's still 670, which is like few percent of change. So having the same brake ducts but higher temps won't make the brake overheat. They overheat your tires because they have warmth from another source. So if you are still in the range, the brake ducts are there to control the tire temps, not control the brake temps. While in the range, that's important. If you go off the range and the brakes are overheating or underheating, then you control the brake temps and you have to sacrifice something in the tire area. That's why cold races are hard, because you try to close the brake ducts, but you get overheated brakes, which does not grip. And especially like you on the Porsche, it's very hard because you close the front brake ducts and the rear brake ducts, the rear are fine because they don't brake that much. But the rear tires are already hot because they work way much. And the front ones are cold. But you cannot close it more because you are already overheating a lot. So cold temps in the Porsche is very hard to keep the front hot. Also vice versa. In high temps, it's very hard to keep the rears cold enough. So that's our setup. Let's take a few laps. Let me reset my VR. The lap was 41.67 in the replay, so that's our target. As you can see, we have 15 kilograms of handicap. And okay. Let's take a... Yeah, so this is the old setup, 9.5 with the 9.7 physics and same BOP as it was, so we corrected the BOP. So it should handle the same, but since Kunos changed the dampers, it does not. What I found is it has brake lift off oversteer, some throttle understeer, sometimes oversteer. It just behaves different, and I did not like it. Hopefully my breathing is not in the microphone. Usually I don't record live, so please sorry if I screw something up or it's just not a good quality. This is my first attempt for this. Tires are getting okay, still a bit cold, but start to get okay. Yep, that's what I'm talking. I broke like I usually do. Trail braking, very soft at the end, and the car just snaps. Not completely, it's still controlled because it's not that different, but it does not behave like I set it up. I set it up as usually I try to do, is to have a very predicted manner. So during braking, during coasting, during throttle, in the same corner, it should handle the same way. So it tries to stay on the same trajectory. If you don't turn the wheel much, it just does sort of the same thing on both three faces. Uh-oh, I got a big lag, sorry. So it should handle the same, but it just does not. It understeers, oversteers, not how I set it up last time. Understeer. There, if I try to trail brake more, it oversteers. And we are on the completely same setup, completely same temperatures. Let's make a decent lap with not screwing up. Yeah, I tried to drive it correctly, but I have to fight it. It just does weird things. It's not how I set it up. Yeah, understeers there, oversteers, understeers, oversteer, understeer, everything in the one corner, and always the worst one. So also we have some rear overheating, which is obvious result of the sliding we do. These temperatures were set for this exact same temps, and I usually can drive in the same manner. So having this extreme, like almost 0.3 psi higher rear rides, is definitely a difference in the physics or setup compared to the physics. 41.87, and I was struggling, while in the replay you could see I did a lot of 6 to 7s while still setting up the car. Yep, oversteer again, just killing the tires. It's not good. You can control it, it's not the end of the world, but it's not how I set it up. As you can see, 0.2 in the rear tires, and it should be 27 flat maximum, because I always go for max 7, except when the higher pressures only happens in a straight and you always go under it at the end of the straight. Then I let it 1 or 2 point psi higher. Okay, so we did sort of the same time, bit slower, but we just killed the rear tires, and it was not a comfortable drive. Also, let's see the tire life. We lost. It's pretty equal. That's good. I usually try to aim equal wears so we have more life. We basically lost 1 at the rear and 0.606 at the front in how many laps? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 floor laps. So fifth, beginning of the 5th was the last. Now switch to the new settings, new setup. I have to use the new BoP because I made the setup for that. Practice. Made a setup for the new BoP, so it was unfair to use the old BoP because we would have some oversteer. So this is the new setup, same temperature, same everything on the track. Caster the same, camber the same, much less tow. We don't need that much turning. Much less rear tow. We had like 0.12. So we are controlling the lift off and brake off oversteer with dampers here. Less camber, so even more tire life. Let's see. We have minus 50 kilograms of ballast here. So I would say we did 41.7 in the replay, 41.7 in the test one. If we do under 41.5, that's not because of the BoP, sorry. That's not because of the BOP change, because 15 kilograms of BOP is like 2-3 tenths, I would say. I'm not sure, but I would say. Electronics are the same. 20 liters, new tires, obviously. 15, a bit more front brake bias, same max anti-roll bar. Double the spring rate at the front. Bump stops are completely for fail-safe now, so even higher range and maxed out the rate. So if we hit it, we just slam to a soft wall instead of a hard wall. I mean a harder wall here. Big change, no preload. So we keep the rotation of, so we keep the off-throttle rotation in check with somehow else. Spoiler, it's the dampers. Anti-roll bar 0. Really soft again, a bit higher range. One click higher rate, that's not much difference. Dampers. I maxed out the fast bump and rebound because even with maxed out, I still had hard time to keep the Gaussian distribution close to check, so not like 20% if in the fast part, but mid tens. Front bump is a bit higher. Front rebound is, I think, same. Yep. And the rear was 938 something. Now it's 4, less than a half. So we let the car squat much faster. And the rebound is higher. We don't let it dive. So we control the rear one much more. We stiffened up the dampers everywhere, and the rear is both softer and so it's softer in squatting, but stiffer in diving. And I used 2 millimeters more rake. So all these changes are also countering even more rake. Brake ducts are the same. Let's see. We did 4 laps. Sorry again. I'm not used to having this microphone in front of me while driving. Let's brake boost the brake temps a bit, like 500 in the front. Yeah, the suspension is much stiffer now, but it's very stiff, but still very forgiving, which is a weird feeling that you can and should drive it hard, but it does not kill you for it, except the fast right-hander, but that's a different case. That will kill you with any setup if you are not prepared. Because as I said, you need some oversteer in the last corner here. High speed oversteer. Hopefully my transductors don't pick up the microphone. I mean the microphone don't pick up the transductors. I have 4 10-watt transductors under my bottom and my thighs, one for one wheel, so all 4 corners, and they are driven by a C-hub. So when I'm going close to the limit of the tire or over it, I start to feel a buzzing feel there. Also, I have one under the brake or on the brake pedal and one on the throttle, so I have traction control and ABS feedback too. For every activation, it just buzzes my feet slightly. And there's a big 50 watt for the party stuff in my back of my seat, which is just rumbling if I hit a hard bump like this one, or when I ride on the rev limiter, it starts to buzz hard. It does not do much here. It did much more when I played rally sims. It's much fun there. You have a big kick, like you land with the car after a jump, and it just kicks you in the back like hell. It's very fun. But the four under it's integrated into the seat, so I have a car seat. I cut it open, cut 4 matching holes into the foam, and put the transducers there. So I do not feel it if I just sit on it. I only feel it when they activate, and it's very close to my skin, just the textile of the seat and the textile of my clothing. So it's very direct feeling. It's not loud, but I can feel what the car does. So tires are getting closer. I don't know how much it seems, but it's very predictable. I just brake hard, steer turn in, accelerate hard, drive hard, everything. Yet it's very stiff, so it changes direction. The only issue is here, but it's issue with every car if you set up the car for the rest of the track. That was overdriving. Skill issue, as Aris would say. I'm not sure it was originated from him, but I heard him in his stream a while ago. So as I said, we are in minus 15 BoP compared to the last setup. So a mid 41 is a comparable pace. If you have mid 41 pace, we are in the same ballpark as with the last setup. Obviously that was a bad lap, but bit high, 41. Tire temps are good now, or decent. Let's try to make a good lap. Very good at turning, just predictable, hard on brake, slight trail braking. It does what I would say should do. Slight turning at the releasing of the brake in the last turn, but I usually like it like that. Tricky corner, nailed it. Hard corner, nailed it. Super hard corners, screwed it. Of trail braking, corners nicely, no understeer, no oversteer, just does what I want. The hard trail braking, overshot a bit, skill issue. Not hitting the death sausage and the grass. Yeah, just overdrive a car. Should not speak when I'm driving because I do weird things now. We should have checked the tires now, but I want to do a good lap. do a real lap. By the way, I lost like 2 tenths in the last corner in the previous before this lap. I still can't drive. But the car is good. Probably done. No, it wasn't invalidated. That's surprising. Would be nice if I did not overdrive a car, but it's not the issue of the car or the setup. If we do the double the laps, we should have double the bar, which is a good comparison, I think. It was like 0.6 in front, 0.06 in front, 0.1 in rear. Yeah, I'm getting more consistent if I don't speak. Concentrate on the driving. This is my first attempt to drive and speak simultaneously. Yeah, it seems like 41.4, sort of consistent. Let's see the Tyre. Fronts are much closer to the rear. That's good. They are more balanced in usage. Left, right is usually the same in Kyalami. Uh, and our fronts were 0.06, our rears were 0.1. Now we have like 0.2 in the rear. Probably we did more hard laps. Yeah, it was more than double the lap, and the first lap is usually safe, so it's much more wear now. So double the wear at the rear and 2.5 at the front means we have shifted the wear to the front much more. And the setup, well, I cannot compare to the last patchless setup. I usually set up it this way, like this one, a bit less stiff. We stiffened up the car, but kept the soft feeling of it under the when trying to reach the limit, so it does not try to kill you still, like I did in the last one. So in that regard, it's the same. If you are not that close to the limit, you can drive it a bit harder. Uh, and we have better Tyre, and it works with the new setup, which is the most important. New patch, which is the most important. So that was my short showcase of what happened with the Porsche in the last few days. Uh, I I hope you got some useful information, and as this was my first attempt for sort of live record, if you like it, don't like it, have any opinion, how could I make it better, feel free to comment it. I always appreciate honest feedback. So if you don't like something, just tell it. I learn from mistakes, as everyone does. So have a nice day, and thank you for watching.